Okay, this is the solution video for the problem, is Chris telling the truth? The problem revolves around Chris, who says he can dunk a basketball using a trampoline placed 8 feet from the goal. The basketball goal is 9 feet tall, even though regulation height is 10 feet, and the longest diagonal distance Chris has ever jumped is 13 feet from the trampoline to the hoop. So before we get started, it's important to identify some key pieces of information. So first we'll ask, well, what is the question asking? This can typically be found in the very last section of the question. It says, based on the measurements in the story, is Chris telling the truth, and provide a diagram supporting your claim. So first of all, it's important to identify that what they're asking for is a yes or no response. They want to see is yes, is he telling the truth, or no, is Chris lying about his ability to dunk the basketball. And then the second part to this question is they're wanting you to do a diagram that supports your theory. Okay, second, it's important to identify what's being given to you. And that way you can identify if it's a given or is it a distractor. So I like at this point to go ahead and start with the diagram as well, because then I can place my given information and it kind of helps me to see what's really important and what is a distractor. So we know that he's got a trampoline set up, and we know that the trampoline is set up across from a basketball goal. Okay, and the trampoline is 8 feet. The problem tells us that the trampoline is set 8 feet apart from the basketball goal. So 8 feet. Next, the story tells us that the basketball goal is 9 feet tall, with an added piece of information that says, even though regulation height is 10 feet. Okay, so which one do we use, 9 feet or 10 feet? Well, the problem revolves around Chris and Chris's basketball hoop. So we're going to go with the 9 feet because that's what they say is the height of his basketball goal. And then we're going to identify the 10 feet regulation size as a distractor. So we're going to make sure that we don't use that 10 feet because really that information is put there just to kind of distract us and add another number to see if we'll know which one to use. Okay, so we're going to use the 9 feet height for his basketball goal. We've got 8 feet is the distance from the trampoline to the basketball goal. And really what we're trying to find is, can Chris jump the diagonal distance required to dunk the basketball? It says in the story that Chris typically, his highest diagonal jump has been 13 feet. So what we're looking for is for him to jump no greater than 13 feet. So less than or equal to 13 feet. So as we see the problem kind of set up as a diagram, we now should see that a triangle is also forming. So hopefully you guys started to see that. And not just any triangle, but if you install your basketball hoop properly, it should be perpendicular to the ground, and that will form a 90-degree triangle or a right triangle. So this right triangle has some special properties that we're going to take advantage of. One of them being that it allows us to use the Pythagorean theorem. So here comes our how. Hopefully by this point you're starting to think about, how are we going to solve this? How are we going to show that he's capable of jumping that far? So we're going to use Pythagorean's theorem. Pythagorean's theorem is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And now let's fill in our triangle with the right parts. Let's see, we've got 8 feet is the distance from the trampoline to the basketball goal. 9 feet is the height of the basketball goal. And I want to find out what would be the required diagonal distance to dunk the basketball. So I'm going to label that as C. And the reason why I labeled it as C is I know in my Pythagorean's theorem, C squared, or C, is representative of the longest side of the triangle and also the side opposite the right angle. So that's why I'm going to go ahead and identify that C so I don't get confused when I fill it into my formula. All right, so the legs of the triangle can be filled in as A and B. So I'm going to write A squared plus 9 squared equals C squared. Now I'm going to square both the 8 and the 9. 64 plus 49. Nope, sorry, 81. Getting ahead of myself. Equals C squared. Now I'll add 64 and 81, which will make 145. There we go. And I don't want C squared, I want just C, so I'm going to take square root of both sides, and I'll get 12.04. So I get that C equals 12.04. Well, what that means is that this diagonal distance required to actually jump and dunk the basketball would need to be 12.04 feet. Now, Chris says that he has been able to successfully dunk a ball 13 feet diagonally. So that's well within the limit, and we're going to say that yes, Chris is telling the truth. Hopefully you'll have a solution similar to this prepared to come into class tomorrow and discuss your solutions.